Welcome back to the Two Marks and a Spark Wrestling Podcast here on the Lock 22 YouTube channel. I'm Ben Shrewsbury. I'm here with Uncle Russ, the resident uncle of
Hello.
Lock 22 Productions. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about.
What a week.
Holy hell. So on these normal shows, we're going to have a segment called the News of the Week where we're going to just recap everything that happened that week. And let's start with that. The first big news of the week that I thought was going to be the lead story and all we were going to really have to talk about news-wise was Kota Ibushi left New Japan.
Right?
Now, I want to say we saw this coming. He'd been frustrated with New Japan for some time, frustrated with how they'd handled his booking as well as his recent shoulder injuries. So
Yes.
it's not a surprise.
Yeah, I was somewhat aware of that, although I haven't been following New Japan closely. This week, I refamiliarized myself by going back and watching some of my favorite matches with him, just to kind of refamiliar. I know you're a lot more familiar with him than I am. I have been laying off in New Japan for some time, but I had heard on the news that there was a family tragedy, and he took some time off in addition to the injury, and that there was a lot of heat between him and the company as to how they handled that.
Yeah, and there was a lot going on there. There was a lot of problems. Good for him for basically just saying, I'm going to get out of here and not causing additional problems on top of that.
Right.
He did say that he doesn't want to sign a contract anywhere,
Right.
at least in the short term. Now, people don't realize this because he does not look it, but Kota Ibushi is 40 years old.
He looks a lot younger.
And he hasn't wrestled in almost 2 years.
Correct.
So
I know Tony Khan has already come right out the gate saying that he wants to hire him if possible.
But he's not going to sign anywhere. So
he wants to hire everybody.
But here's my thing with this Ibushi stuff, right? He goes and he immediately announces that, like, what was it, 5 minutes after the New Japan press release, that he's going to wrestle for GCW in March.
Yes, GCW, Game Changer.
Right.
Right.
I don't know. I think an opponent got announced. I don't have it in front of me. Let me grab that really quick.
I read that he was booked to do 2 shows with them.
Right. It's WrestleMania weekend.
Right.
Let me see here without screwing everything up if I can. Does not look like they've announced his opponent as of this recording. We're recording this Friday right after SmackDown.
Right.
Now, I want to make it abundantly clear. I do not think Kota Ibushi is going to WWE.
I doubt it.
But here's my thing with that, and here's the caveat with that. I don't think it's impossible that in a year down the road, if he decides he wants to end his career in the biggest company in the world, if WWE continues to surge the way they are, and numbers will tell you WWE is surging, I would not be surprised if Kota Ibushi turns up in WWE in 12 months. Do I think that's going to happen? No, I do not. But do I think it's a possibility because of how much money they have and because of the immense resources they have and the way that Hunter would probably push him? Yeah, I think it's...
Well, was he ever with NXT? Did he do some matches with NXT?
Yeah, he wrestled in the Cruiserweight Classic, the first one.
Okay, right. Just a little. I know he was there just a little bit.
But he was never under contract.
Correct. Okay, thank you for. I wasn't sure about that. I've been enjoying watching a lot of his old matches, and the guy could really work.
He's great. I just worry about that shoulder injury because he couldn't lift weights for a long time. Now he's in great shape. The promo they used in the GCW photo is brand new, so he's in good shape. He looks like he's ready to go. I did
not know he was 40.
But that shoulder injury he had, that would have sidelined anybody for over a year, just because of how serious it was. So I really hope that I hope he works Cardona in GCW if that's where he's going and if that's where he's going to be, he should work Cardona because Cardona's not going to hurt him again. I mean, or you know what?
Cardona is really looking good these days.
His wife's back in WWE. I wouldn't be surprised if he is too, sooner rather than later. I think it'll be after WrestleMania if he's going back to WWE, just because he's got a lot of bookings between now and then.
Yeah.
But
I
anything
would look
past
for anybody
WrestleMania,
new to show up between now and then.
huh?
I wouldn't look for anybody new to show up in WWE between now and then. That's, right after WrestleMania, they usually bring in some people or bring back some people.
Right. So I don't know. Let's get into the Leaping Lanny Poffo stuff.
Yes, I was sad to hear about that. Only 68 years old, not very old.
Yeah, this happened Thursday. A lot happened on Thursday actually, but this was kind of the big news of the day. He was only 68, like Russ said, and the last of the Poffo brothers. So, I mean, obviously tremendous worker. They called him the genius for a reason. The guy could flat out work and he was quicker than a whip. So,
Always a good interview too. He did some shoot interviews that were always interesting.
well, he had such a mind for the business. That was the
one of the nice things that was said about him was the interviewer said that they would have to redirect him back to talking about himself because he'd spend most of the interview talking about his dad and his brother. And they said that was the kind of guy he was. He was always wanting to put other people over above himself, Very generous person.
right. I do want to talk about very briefly, I do want to talk about the earnings call from WWE from Thursday. This happened the same day the Lanny Poffo thing happened. But before I talk about that, because I had people telling me about this on Twitter, this Stone Cold Steve Austin stuff, like he reportedly rejected a match with Brock Lesnar.
Okay.
Well, I believe that.
Yeah.
I don't think he was ever going to work a match with Brock Lesnar. That was never going to happen. Not this year. No.
There's always a rumor about him coming back, and I don't believe it. He doesn't have any reason to come back.
The rumors ended up being true last year because they gave him so much stinking money and he wanted to wrestle one more time. But he said last year that was it. He's done. And generally speaking, when Stone Cold says something, it ends up being true.
Right.
So
even if they offered him a ridiculous amount of money, he doesn't really need the money.
No. He doesn't need the money. And
people just never want to. An awful lot of what you hear online about pro wrestling, there's some of it's just bullshit, and lots of rumors about him.
I don't understand. Do I doubt that they offered him a match for WrestleMania? No, I do not doubt that they offered him a match for WrestleMania. But I don't think he thought about it for very long before he said no.
Yeah. Well, just personally, I don't feel a great need to see him wrestle again. Or The Rock or John Cena or any of the other great wrestlers from the past, Let them enjoy their retirement.
So this earnings call. Worth noting, Vince McMahon was not present on this earnings call.
Yes.
It was Frank Riddick, Nick Khan, and Triple H. This is the first earnings call, and I don't know how long without Stephanie McMahon.
Right.
She's been on, even before she was CEO, she was on almost every single earnings call going back years.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot we didn't already know came out of this.
Right.
Record revenue again. The revenue was for the fourth quarter of 2022 was $325 million for the fourth quarter of 2022
it's
alone.
Just incredible the amount of money that they are raking in. It's unbelievable.
They also announced that viewership for the Royal Rumble was up 52% year over
Yes,
year.
that was, and that it was one of the best pay-per-views they've had in years.
It's insane. Again, I don't doubt any of this.
Right. Well, compared to where they were a year ago, the programming is better. It is improved. It's not perfect by any means.
Well, it's
But it's so
110%
better
better than it was a year
traffic
ago.
we're getting the last couple of years.
It's 110% better than a year ago. And if Triple H has not proved that he can run this company without Vince McMahon sticking his hand in creative,
Right. He's proved it.
52% increase year over year for the Royal Rumble,
Yeah,
which is already one of their most viewed events anyway.
correct.
The Royal Rumble brings back a lot of people, even if it's just for one night. So,
Well, it's kind of the exciting time of the year now, leading up to WrestleMania, and then a lot of people, by the time SummerSlam and Survivor Series comes around, they may, for one reason or another, kind of dropped off. But it seems
I don't think that's going to happen this year
right now.
I don't think the drop off's going to happen, or if it does, it's not going to be as serious.
All right, they are surging, and their programming is getting better. I still think Raw needs a lot of changes, but overall, they're doing much better.
I'm pulling up the Raw viewership for this week so we can talk about that.
All right.
So, Raw this week did 2.1 million. That is way up.
That's way up.
But it is down from the 2.3 million that they did a week ago for the Raw 30 show.
Right. But this was a much better show that we saw this week, I thought.
I thought so too, and I thought the main event was fantastic. Let's get right into Raw here. So
let's do
Raw, January 30th, 2023.
Yes.
This was a good show.
Yes, it was.
We opened up with they were in Tulsa. I forgot to write that down. Thank you.
No.
That's the one thing I forgot. So the show opens with a Cody promo. This guy is so good on the mic. He is incredible.
He is. And he knows how to respond to the fans. I mean, the fans were into it. They were chanting, "You deserve it." They were chanting his name. But Cody on the mic, he knows just exactly how to work that. And for a change, he was allowed to do a complete promo where he highlighted his career. And he talked about being a rookie in Ohio Valley Wrestling and thinking he would be a champion in 2 years. And then he went through all of the crappy gimmicks, like dashing Cody Rhodes. And he kind of indirectly mentioned the Stardust gimmick and the highs and lows. And it was quite an interesting promo. And the thing I liked about this is before he was interrupted, he was allowed to basically complete his thoughts,
Well, he completed the promo, put the mic down, and his music started playing and got cut off. So Judgment Day comes out.
Which surprised me. I didn't expect to see Judgment Day. That was unexpected. I'm always interested every time I see something that I don't expect on Raw. I'm at least intrigued.
So this looked like it was heading in a very bad direction, and it ended up leading to something very good.
Yes.
So they come out, and it sets up for the main event, which is Cody Rhodes versus a member of Judgment Day. They do not tell us who until later. But a brawl ensues because Edge comes out, because of course he does, because Edge has a lot of anger built up towards Judgment Day.
Yes.
This results in a brawl. Cody and Dominic start brawling. That is a match I never want to see in my life. If I ever have to watch Dominic Mysterio wrestle Cody Rhodes, I might just change the channel. And thank God that was not the match.
Yeah, I thought that's when he led off with speaking, I was afraid that's what they were going to go, is that we were going to get
oh, good Lord,
Cody Rhodes versus Dominic.
Now, if it was a tag match with like Cody, Edge, and Ray against the Judgment Day, I would be fine with that.
Yeah, I'm glad we got what we got though. Him and Finn Balor, and then
And there was a lot of nodes to the Bullet Club. We'll get to that here in a minute. The first match we got, though, was Chad Gable versus Seth Rollins in a U.S. Championship Elimination Chamber qualifying match.
right,
They are really pushing these mid-card belts.
right. And Chad Gable is such a good worker who has been buried with such a stupid gimmick. You know, every time they start off his music with that whoosh, I kind of cringe inside.
We got a lot
I
of
love
technical
Seth
wrestling.
Rollins, but I'm not a huge fan of the Seth frickin' Rollins persona. You know, if you're gonna play the part of being an insane, crazy guy, then convince the people that you're really insane. He comes across like he's playing a part.
Well, and here's the thing. This gimmick was originally for when he was a heel. Seth Rollins is not a heel.
Right. Exactly. And
Then,
I mean, they're both good workers, but I, I predicted that Seth Rollins would win. That was obvious, but
well, and here's the
Gable
thing.
is he's
Even
just
if
hasn't been used right.
here's the thing, I think Seth is probably winning the US title. That or Austin Theory is going to work with John Cena at WrestleMania, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. Otherwise, if they're not having Seth win the title, which it certainly seems like they are, why is he in this match?
Right.
Is it to give him something to do?
Could be,
I gave this match a B-. I thought it was really good. A lot of technical stuff, a lot of Greco-Roman. Gable did a lot in this match. They gave him a lot of shine. Get him away from Otis, whatever you do.
Right. And he using the pedigree to finish it.
I didn't think the pedigree was going to finish it because of Seth was selling his knee right before he did the pedigree, and then he hit the pedigree, and I was like,
right.
Hang on, this isn't
that
over.
Surprised me.
Because Seth hit the pedigree, went down on the knee, was selling for a long effing time, and then covered him, and Gable's dead. Chad Gable just died. All right.
Well, they've been burying him so much, Although we on the outside of the ring, we've got to see the round mound of meat.
Yes, the round mound of meat, otherwise known as Otis.
Right.
So we go to commercial. We come back. We get that stupid news headline package that they do after every pay-per-view that I absolutely hate and wish they'd stop doing it because it just.
Right. Very predictable.
Oh, it's formulaic. Then we got a really not good match between Candice LeRae and Io
Sky. Right.
This would start a trend of the night. The wrestling on this show was a little sloppy.
Yeah, and then we had to have the outside interference by Bayley to finish the thing up. It was very predictable.
And I feel like half of this match took place during a commercial break.
Right. Isn't it amazing how they spent so long with their ring entrances? They ring the bell, and then in less than a minute when the action starts, they immediately cut the commercial. And I don't watch the picture-in-picture. I usually I find that to be just a real distraction and real annoying. You very rarely do you see anything that great anyway. But I always wonder at the time at which they choose to cut away for the commercial, it seems like they should have something a little bit more compelling in order to bring the viewer back.
Well, and here's the thing. The wrestlers know when they're going to commercial.
Yeah.
They are told when they are going to commercial.
So why not do something really, really spectacular that's going to keep people on the edge of their seat?
Well, that's what Rey Mysterio's done so well for so many years.
Right.
When he knows they're going to commercial, he's going to do a big spot. So Candice and Io, they have a sloppy match.
Yeah.
It was there. It was fine. And I like both of them.
But it wasn't great.
I like both of these wrestlers, but this match was not very good. And Io wins it on a distraction roll-up. Oddly sloppy, shit finish. Didn't like it. We go to commercial again, but before we do, we're teased with Rhea Ripley making her decision.
Right.
This feels really soon.
Yes.
Um,
and then we get her decision right away, which I don't
that's a
think
really good
was
promo,
surprised.
by the way.
Go ahead. What's that?
Rhea cuts a really good promo.
Yes, she does.
This might have been her best promo ever, and that is saying something. She also got a massive babyface pop on this show, which made
amazing.
No sense. She is a heel.
Totally. People love her though.
The opening line of this promo is, "It feels weird being out there without the Judgment Day, especially without," and I quote, "her little dom-dom."
Yeah. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this company profounds me in so many ways, not all of them good.
She still calls her mommy.
Don't remind me. Anyway.
It could be worse.
So
we're going to get Charlotte Flair.
Which Rhea messed it up in this promo. She said that she challenged Charlotte 3 years ago after Charlotte won the Rumble. Other way around, Charlotte challenged her. So
thank you for that correction. Right.
Why are we doing this again?
And then, during the promo, she said that she didn't like things that were overplayed. And then we're getting the same match.
I wrote in my notes, Rhea officially challenges Charlotte. This is not going to be good.
Right. Right. But then we also, after that, we got the setup for the rest of the slots. In the, then the question becomes who's going to challenge
Bianca.
Bianca.
We'll talk about that later. Next, we get a Seth interview with Kathy Kelly where she asks him almost immediately about Logan Paul. He gets really mad and walks away. I think we're getting Seth Rollins versus Logan Paul at WrestleMania. I think that's pretty safe to say.
Yeah.
Seth is a good worker. I hate Logan Paul. I hope Seth curb stomps him into the ground. Anyway.
Right.
Then we got, speaking of a oddly dead match, Baron Corbin versus Johnny Gargano in a U.S. title elimination chamber qualifier. The crowd did not care.
No, they were dead. And Johnny Gargano, I've heard him referred to as Johnny Same Face because of his lack of facial expression. And, he's one that I've never gotten really that excited about. People used to be a lot more into him than they seem to be now. The crowd was pretty dead for this match.
Well, they were dead because it's Baron Corbin, and every Baron Corbin match is the same thing.
Right, and JBL isn't helping. It's not going to get him over, I don't think.
See, JBL could be a good manager if you put him with a good worker. The problem is, Baron Corbin is not that.
I'd rather see JBL managing Dexter Lumis if he's going to manage somebody.
Dexter Lumis was at ringside for this match for some godforsaken reason. I don't like that. I do not like Dexter Lumis. I did not like Dexter Lumis in NXT. I do not like Dexter Lumis on the main roster. I do not care where Dexter Lumis is. I do not like him. This match, Gargano wins, thank God. Because Can you imagine Baron Corbin in an Elimination Chamber? I might just cry.
Yeah.
But it is another roll-up, and I wrote in all capital letters in my notes, another roll-up, you have to be fucking kidding.
Yeah. Not very innovative. Not very exciting.
But the highlight of this whole segment was after the match when Gargano stole JBL's cowboy hat.
Right.
This was hilarious.
Used a hatchet on it.
Next, we get, I think, the worst Raw segment of 2023 so far.
Could be, possibly.
I'm not saying it's the worst Raw segment ever. It was not that. But it was bad. The VIP lounge with MVP and Austin Theory. This sucks.
Right. Well, yeah. I'm not a big fan of these segments. Usually not,
MVP is great. Austin Theory sucks.
I agree. I always enjoyed MVP. The guy knows how to talk. Used to like to watch him wrestle. He was a good worker. And Bobby Lashley.
Lashley comes out and cuts this whole thing off and beats the crap out of Theory, beats the crap out of, accidentally hits MVP with a spear.
Right.
Because Theory threw him in front. I wonder if we're going to get Lashley versus Omos again.
Could be. Could be. That's what we're dying for, right?
I totally want to see that again. No, I don't.
Right.
Moving on, we get a Balor promo backstage talking about Cody Rhodes, saying he's been stealing from him for years, alluding to Bullet Club as well as other things. And, too sweet.
Right.
Finn started doing that before Cody did. So
right.
It leads to all that. We get another.
I was reminded of some of that when I was watching the Kota Ibushi matches, some of those. Cody was involved in some of those Bullet Club matches that featured him. And
I'd really like to see a Finn versus Ibushi feud booked by Triple H. I think that would be really good. Then we get a Miz promo.
I can't believe this guy has been with this company for 15 years.
Thank you.
I can't believe it. I can't believe he's still there. And I've never gotten it. I never have.
Am I the only one that wants to mute the television every time you hear his music?
Yeah, I agree. Some people, they must love him. He's been there for 15 freaking years.
Well, Miz comes out and he drones on and on and on about not being on Raw 30 and about being screwed out of a Royal Rumble spot and blah, 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 even though he's in the Royal Rumble. He came out at number 3.
Right.
And the crowd does not
the first one eliminated.
And the crowd could not give less of a shit. Adam Pearce came out, thank God. I legitimately wrote in my notes, Pearce is here, thank God.
At least he can get Miz to shut up. And then we got to see somebody who I had basically forgotten about.
Rick Boogs is back. And
right,
they
Boogs.
Extended his name, which is weird. This was a 90-second squash between Boogs and Miz in a suit.
Right. It was basically a comedy match.
It was not offensive. Do not think this was the worst match on the show. It wasn't.
It was better than the previous one with the women.
No, well, Boogs is pretty sloppy himself, so I don't know if it was better, but.
Well, I don't get his gimmick either, I mean, he's got the Ultimate Warrior fringe on his boots, and he shakes his head so much, he looks like he's hulking up all the time, and he's about
ready to. If you gave him a different gimmick, I think he could be cool. He's got the look.
He's a good athlete, he doesn't look that bad. This seems a little goofy.
Then we get a video package showing the finish to the Royal Rumble.
Right.
We don't get any fallout from this until SmackDown. We'll talk about SmackDown later on in the show.
And then
Bailey's back. Oh, good Lord.
Right. We're into the third hour of the show, and one of the things I noted here, that we're 2 hours in. This is a constant complaint I have about Raw in particular and the WWE in general. We're 2 hours in. We've had 4 matches, including 2 very short ones. And this is, in contrast to AEW, which usually starts off with action in the ring.
And ends with action in the ring.
Right. In the WWE, we get lots and lots and lots of talking and talking and talking.
Now, there's a balance to this stuff that neither company really has. I think New Japan has it better than just about anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But good Lord, I don't make a note of how much is left of this show until after this promo. Bayley comes out, she cuts a pretty decent promo bragging about how Damage Control did. I want to mention that they mentioned Dakota Kai was hurt in the Royal Rumble.
Right. And she apparently was backstage or something.
But Becky comes out and interrupts Bayley and says she wants that steel cage match that she got screwed out of a week prior. Bayley says no. Becky insists on it and then drags a accosted Dakota Kai out of the back.
Right, exactly. And it threatened to beat her up more with a chair and injure her further. And this is the baby face. Isn't it amazing that the heels get cheered by the crowd and the baby faces, they do heelish things. It's very bizarre the way things have changed. You don't know, there's no rhyme or reason to it sometimes.
I don't know that this was heelish considering everything Damage Control have done to Becky. Like, they basically haven't left her alone for 6 months. So right. I don't know how much you can blame the character for saying, you know what, I'm sick of this shit.
Right. Well, I guess we're going to finally get the cage match.
I wrote after this segment ended during the commercial break, I wrote, this show has 45 minutes left, and then in all caps, this show is still too damn long.
Yes, it is. Yep. And I tell you what, it's like they would be admitting that they did something wrong if they went back to 2 hours, which means that they probably will never do it. But I'm like, you should. It would be smart. The fans would love you for it.
Well, here's my thing. I've been saying it for years. For as long as Raw is 3 hours, it is going to be very hard to find a balance between wrestling and promos on this show.
Yeah. They've got tons of wrestlers that we never see. They could give us more matches and less talking, but the way it's formatted, it seems like they're just kind of stuck in a rut.
I think it's the brand split. Honestly, I think that's the biggest problem. We get a Kathy Kelly interview with Adam Pearce where he gives us a whole bunch of news. He confirms Becky versus Bayley in the cage for next week. A women's chamber match is announced to determine who will face Bianca Belair at WrestleMania. I thought this was weird. Raquel, Nikki, Liv, and Asuka all given qualifying automatically because they were the last 4 eliminated from the Royal Rumble.
Correct.
And then we get
2 spots.
We get a 4-way announced for Monday on Raw, which is Candice, Piper, Mia, and Carmella. And then Chelsea Green shows up and has a segment almost as short as her Royal Rumble appearance.
Exactly.
Taps Adam Pearce on the shoulder, says, "Are you the manager?" Her gimmick appears to be a spoiled brat. She was great in this segment.
Which is not the most original gimmick because, an awful lot of the female wrestlers just seem to be stuck on that persona, that stuck up entitled bitch, but she does it well.
She does it better than just about anybody. Then we got Dolph Ziggler versus Bronson Reed. This was also a squash.
Well, then also Mustafa Ali comes out and cuts a little promo on Dolph Ziggler, who, they were cutting him down about what a heel he was and how he's so annoying. And I said, basically, when a heel really wants to piss off the crowd, he basically comes out and tells them something that's true. And that Dolph Ziggler just gets handed an opportunity for no apparent reason. What has Dolph Ziggler done lately that would qualify him for a shot at the Elimination Chamber?
Basically sat quietly in the back and waited for a match. Reed wins, thank God. Dolph Ziggler did not deserve to be here. Bronson Reed did.
Bronson Reed is, I like him.
The U.S. title chamber match now sits at Gargano, Rollins, Theory, and Reed, with 2 more qualifying matches next week.
Right. Which we get an announcement backstage. Go ahead.
We get an announcement that Bianca Belair is next. There was no Bianca Belair on this show.
Oh, I noticed that too. Matter of fact, I rewound and said, did I doze off? Did I miss something? Because apparently it must have been cut at the last minute for time reasons or something. She definitely did not show up.
We get a Carmella promo that was awful and thankfully cut short by Asuka, who is appearingly to be turning heel. Thank God.
With the green teeth.
Yeah, that segment was bad, but at least it was funny. Then we got a segment that sets up Montez Ford versus Elias and Angelo Dawkins versus Damian Priest for next week.
Right.
Uh,
It would be interesting to see the Street Profits going against each other. See how that would work.
I don't think they're both going to qualify. I think
I
Ford
don't
will,
either.
I think Priest is going to beat Dawkins. So we get to the main event finally after about 75 minutes of commercials.
Right.
Cody Rhodes versus Finn Balor. Cody has a lot of pyro.
Too much pyro.
You could not see the first 2 minutes of this match.
I know. It was so smoky in there. It looked like the way rock concerts used to look back in the 70s. You know, just a thick cloud, a thick haze covering everything.
So this was a very good match.
I thought so.
I did write before this match started that I sniff interference and a lot of it, because the entire Judgment Day was out there with Finn Balor. You know, they really need to do something about this Judgment Day thing. You'd think Adam Pearce would come out and say, you know, I'm kind of sick of all of my matches having interference.
Right.
You're banned from ringside.
Yeah. Which they do that once in a while, but not often enough. It doesn't make any sense.
To my knowledge, that this match had never happened before. To my knowledge. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think it has.
I don't remember, no.
We do get interference.
Then we got the "This is awesome" chant, you know, which
overused, but
you know, I'd love to be at the crowd, you know, when they start chanting "This is awesome," and just to be a prick, I'd say, "No, it's not."
But this match was very good. Too much interference from both Edge and the Judgment Day. Everybody was just getting involved in this. Beth Phoenix got involved.
Beth Phoenix.
I'm like, holy hell, we got 10 people at ringside. Oh my God. We got a quarter of the Royal Rumble out here. Okay.
Well, I don't know what their plans are with Beth Phoenix, but I look for them to have some. They're going to have to get some matches with her and Rhea Ripley.
I'm surprised they're not putting her in the chamber.
Yeah. Yeah, that never occurred to me. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
I mean, maybe she can't do it. I don't know, but I would assume it's going to be a tag match of Edge and Beth Phoenix against a member of the Judgment Day, probably Dominic and Rhea at
Dominic and Rhea. Got the mother and son duo there. Could be worse. At least it's not beaver cleavage.
This Raw show. It was
then
there.
3-hour show, 6 matches. Do better, you know. I mean, I keep track of that stuff because it annoys me.
Well, Russ, let's talk about something that doesn't annoy you. Let's talk about another show here on Lock 22, your comic show.
Yes. Every week, go to Lock 22 on YouTube, Uncle Russ's Comic Talk. Every week, I have approximately a half a dozen comics for sale. Got a lot more for sale, but I just highlight a half a dozen or so. And then I also spend some time talking about things from my own collection that I like to collect. This week's last episode, I spent some time talking about underground cartoonist Robert Crumb and some of the works of his that I've been collecting lately and the controversies surrounding him. I talk about EC Comics, the horror and crime comics from the 1950s, which were so ghastly they provoked congressional hearings about how comic books were causing juvenile delinquency, and delve a little bit into the stuff I like to collect and some of the history surrounding it. Invite you all to tune in. And in addition, you know, Lock 22 Productions has a lot of other content with the NFL, which is following the NFL. And there's comedy on there. There's all sorts of interesting content. I invite you to tune in and give me some feedback. Let me know what you think.
Going back to the world of wrestling now.
Yes, sir.
We got a really weird Dynamite show to talk about.
Yes.
This show was good, but it was weird. This show was paced really weird.
one of the things I like about AEW is they usually start, they even skip the ring entrances. They'll start in the bell rings and boom, they go. And we started off with John Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page.
This match was really good, but they went 25 minutes.
Yes.
Not bell to bell. They went from the second the show started
Right.
to what was that, 8-minute brawl?
Yeah. On the floor, in the crowd, all around. Moxley's already busted open and bleeding before they even get in the ring. And then they ring the bell, supposedly to start the match.
But even the match was half over.
Exactly. And it was a pretty good match, It was pretty brutal.
This match was great, but it was the dumbest finish you have ever seen in your life. It was a roll-up finish. I thought I was watching Raw again. I got angry.
Just another quick roll-up, and that's the way they did it.
We're getting another one of these, aren't we? We're getting Moxley versus Hangman 3. No, wait, that would be Moxley versus Hangman 4, because this was Moxley versus Hangman 3.
Exactly. Yeah, we're probably going to get more because the way they ended it was with Adam Page being a sore loser and a crybaby.
And John Moxley being a sore winner.
A sore winner, exactly.
Which was, are they turning Hangman or John heel? I can't tell anymore.
It's hard to tell.
They're turning one of them. I just don't know which one.
Yeah. I got to admit that I am not as big a fan of Adam Page since he's been in AEW. I used to like him better in Ring of Honor. I just don't know that he comes across that believable. His promos I don't think are that great.
Well, and can we acknowledge that Kenny Omega is the best world champion this company's ever had?
I don't.
Who do you think?
I don't. I would acknowledge that personally. I would disagree with you there.
Who would you say, Moxley?
MJF.
Well, his reign's still going. I'm talking about past, in terms of past reigns, it's Omega.
Yes. I'm not a huge Kenny Omega fan. I don't know for sure. It might possibly Moxley, not Chris Jericho.
Jericho sucked as champion.
Yeah. I used to love Jericho. I think that he's past his prime. I think that's very obvious, but I don't hate Kenny Omega, but just not a huge fan. I liked him much better as a heel. When they brought in Don Callis to manage him, I thought that was a huge improvement.
But
I really liked the combination of those two working together. That's when I really first began to enjoy Kenny Omega in AEW, is when he turned fully heel.
That was world champion heel Kenny Omega was the best version of Kenny Omega, period.
I think that's the best version of him also. And, he's really not that different in what he says or how he acts or how he wrestles. It's just a little bit different tone that
he's a little crazier.
I think that difference in tone just makes him a little better.
But we were talking about how Seth Rollins doesn't play the crazy that well. Kenny Omega plays crazy beautifully.
Yeah.
He plays crazy like he's crazy.
And, one of the reasons we haven't seen him that much lately, but I always enjoy seeing Don Callis. I think he's underrated. I think he's a great manager. He's a really good talker. And I think that Don Callis elevates the people he works with. I'm a big fan.
Well,
okay.
we get Renee Paquette versus anybody. Oh, good Lord. Can you imagine Renee Paquette trying to wrestle? Oh, no.
Right.
We get an interview with Renee Paquette, the Bunny, the Butcher, the Blade, and Jamie Hayter.
Right.
This was fine. Renee Paquette is very good at her job. But it gets announced that the Bunny is decent on the mic. Jamie Hayter is great at everything. But this whole thing gets cut off after a match is announced for next week, which is Hayter versus the Bunny in an eliminator match. Hayter's going to win that.
Or not Paige. What's her
Britt Baker, they've cut backstage somewhat frantically, further backstage, I guess, to Britt
Right.
Baker getting the hell beat out of her by Saraya and Tony Storm.
Soraya, yeah. Yeah, I can't keep these name changes sometimes I can't keep track of them all. Soraya, formerly known as Paige. I was surprised that they turned her heel so fast. It didn't
I
make
don't
any
think
sense.
she's a heel. I think she's supposed to be the baby face.
Yeah, I just don't get it. She's definitely not getting over with me.
Anyway,
we'll see what becomes of that.
we get a squash match between the Acclaimed and Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum. This was fine. The Acclaimed are great. They're very over.
Yes. What was the name of that tag team?
Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum.
Okay, I don't remember the name even being announced. I missed it, and they didn't have any graphic up for them.
They
I
said
know
it
that
once.
I thought it was funny when they referred to him as the bootleg Beverly Brothers.
Well, that's pretty much what they were.
Yeah, yeah. And you notice that when he took that foot to the chin, that first guy he had a little trouble getting himself back over the rope backwards. Didn't look very good. It was over
this
very
was the
fast than it should have been.
This was the classic squash match.
Yeah,
Two jobbers you've never heard of.
exactly. Two guys that didn't stand a chance. They were there just for one reason, that's to get beat. And I think that this family drama with the Guns is kind of silly, and I don't know where they're going. I hope that it doesn't go as bad as I think it could. I just hate to see this kind of booking putting the stink on the Acclaimed.
We are getting, as a result of a post-match promo that frankly made no sense to begin with.
Right.
We are getting now the Guns versus the Acclaimed for the tag titles on Wednesday.
Right.
I'm sorry, we're doing what?
Right.
What the hell?
And this has something to do with Billy Gunn's damaged relationship with his sons, which none of this makes any sense. You know, who's writing this stuff? Tony Khan? Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. Okay.
And the Acclaimed, I really like the Acclaimed, you know. I think
the Guns are not winning the tag titles. Let's get that out of the way.
Oh, no. There's no way. That wouldn't make any sense at all. I just wish that the Acclaimed were used for better things.
That would be like putting the tag titles on Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum over there. They're not doing that.
That probably is not too likely to happen. Turbo Floyd, have you heard of these guys before?
I think they've wrestled on Dark before.
Okay.
That's what Excalibur said.
All right. Yeah.
We go backstage to Marvez, who I despise.
Alex Marvez talking to Jungle Boy,
who asks him what's next for Jungle Hook, which is one of the greatest tag team names I think ever.
And apparently nothing.
And apparently it's over.
Yeah.
Jungle Boy says he's going to be a singles champion this year. I doubt that because Tony will bury him in 6 weeks. I'd really like to see Jungle Boy get the TNT title. I don't think it's going to happen. Kind of seems like they've forgotten about him.
Whatever happened to Luchasaurus? Is he injured? I can't remember.
He's heel. He's heel with Christian, remember?
Right, but I haven't seen him in a while.
Well, it's because he's a heel and his buddy's hurt because Christian's probably going to be back before Revolution or right around Revolution. But then we got a very good match between Takeshita and Brian Cage. I thought this match was very good. Takeshita got a win, which was a pleasant surprise. And
yeah, it was good. And I'm not that sold on Brian Cage, but I thought he had a pretty good match with Takeshita.
Well, Takeshita could have a good match with a broom. I'm fairly convinced.
Yeah. Because a lot of the guys that's worked with Brian Cage in the past did not make him look good.
Then we got another freaking interview segment
with the Jericho Appreciation Society.
This show was starting to drag at this point. I want to make that clear.
Hey, is it just me or does Daddy Magic Matt Menard, the way he talks and the way he looks, he reminds me of the Nasty Boys.
I think that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
Um, they announce a gauntlet
Gauntlet.
for Starks in order to face Chris Jericho. This is eerily similar to the gauntlet Jericho had to go through to face MJF a couple years ago.
I remember that. I remember that. That was a long drawn out bunch of nonsense that I don't think did MJF any good. That was
This
some
will be
pretty bad booking.
This will be no different.
Well, at least we probably won't have any pizza cutters in this one.
I didn't mind the pizza cutter spot as much as everyone else did, but
Pizza Hut were the most offended by it.
you mean Domino's? Yeah, they didn't
Domino's,
like
right? Domino's Pizza. Thank you.
Then we got Kenny Omega and the Bucks on a basketball court. They challenged AR Fox and Top Flight for next week.
How do you feel about the Bucks? I haven't talked about this prior. I hate them. I've always hated them.
I don't know what everybody sees in the Bucks. I frankly don't get it. I get it with Kenny Omega. I think Omega is one of the 5 best wrestlers in the world, but I do not get it with the Young Bucks.
I never have.
And I think without the attachment to Kenny, I don't know that they get where they are. Because Kenny,
they just do the same thing all the time, and they do way too much of it.
But here's the thing. Think about them without Kenny. Think about how much worse that would be.
Right.
Then we get a match that we're not going to be able to talk about here because we didn't watch Rampage because we recorded this during Rampage and we're recording this during Rampage, which was a trios tag title match between the Elite, Matt Hardy, Ethan Page, and Isaiah Cassidy. I can guarantee you the Elite won this match.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure of that.
Then we got probably the best match on this show in terms of technical wrestling, Bryan Danielson versus Timothy Thatcher.
Timothy Thatcher making his debut in AEW.
This was great.
And they both looked excellent. They both looked serious. This looked like a serious fight, which is what most pro wrestling in the modern era does not look like. This looked like a real fight. This looked like something where you could suspend your disbelief and get involved in the drama of it. I agree. It was the best match of the show. It was probably the best match I've seen all week.
It's between this and the Moxley Hangman match for me.
Yeah.
Danielson wins with a bicycle knee. MJF comes out to try and interfere in the match before Bryan's able to hit the knee, and Takeshita. It certainly seems like we may be getting a Bryan Danielson Takeshita tag team match at some point. Yes. I would enjoy that.
Oh, I would too.
But it certainly seems like we are going to be getting Danielson versus MJF at Revolution. That match is going to be fantastic. Too bad we'll have to sit through 4.5 hours to get to it.
Probably so, right.
So MJF and Takeshita continue to brawl backstage after the match. AEW security separate the two. Or, as I like to call them, the marks backstage separate.
Right. Wrestlers in training.
Renee Paquette gets probably the angriest I've ever seen her and interrupts this whole thing and says that Tony Khan announced that next week it's going to be MJF versus Takeshita in a non-title match. This is going to be amazing.
It'll be great. I'm disappointed it's a non-title match because I generally think that every time the champion wrestles, the belt should be on the line. I don't like I don't generally there's exceptions to the rule, but generally I don't like champions having tune-up matches or non-championship matches.
Well, that's why Roman Reigns' title run this time around has been so good, because he's not wrestling random matches.
Exactly.
When he's wrestling, it's for the title.
I mean, back in the old days, back in the territory days, a lot of times you'd see the champion would wrestle once a month. And other than that, you generally didn't even see him on TV except to do promos.
We also got the announcement that it will be RUSS versus Bryan Danielson. I'm sure that'll be a very good match.
Yes, RUSS. Yeah, I started watching him when I think it was Ring of Honor. Toward the end of their time, he was doing pretty well there. And MJF had the briefcase full of cash, that whole thing. Kind of a silly angle, but yet I think it'll be a good match.
Then we got, if not for this terrible SmackDown show that we had tonight, that I just thought was objectively not a good show, this would have been the worst match of the week. But yes, I think there was a match on SmackDown that was worse than Jade Cargill versus Red Velvet. This was terrible.
Here's where you and I will disagree. Yeah, it wasn't a great match, but I like Jade Cargill.
I
think that she started out pretty green. She's gotten better. And I think she looks great. I think she's gotten better. The impression I got from her when she first started was that, she had great finishers that looked very well, but yet she couldn't even throw a punch.
Red Velvet is very good and carried this match as best she could. But poor Red Velvet, you want to talk about somebody who's gotten buried under the sand.
Yeah. This is the first time I've seen her wrestle in a very long time.
You want to know something? I want to go on a mini rant here, and I understand that this show is getting very long in the tooth, and it's only going to get longer.
That's all right.
But this AEW women's division, I want to go through some of the people that they are just blatantly ignoring at the moment. And this is specifically in reference to the women's roster. I get that there's a lot of guys that they're ignoring as well, but specifically right now talking about the women's roster. We had a Jericho Appreciation Society segment on this show. We did not see hide nor hair of Anna Jay or Tay Conti.
Right.
I don't remember the last time Athena showed up on television. Where the hell is Chris Statlander?
I understand that she was out with an injury, but it's been a very, very long time. And at the time that she got hurt and disappeared, she was doing some of the best matches.
I thought she was going to win the title.
Her career, I thought she was really doing excellent.
I thought they were pushing her for the title.
It sure looked like it for a while because she was coming on strong and really made a good impression on me. Very good wrestler.
Where's Layla Hirsch?
I don't know.
Where's Mercedes Martinez?
Completely missing in action.
Where's Mercedes Martinez?
I don't know.
This all just.
But we got Jade Cargill 50 and 0. And I'll admit, even though I don't hate her, I don't dislike her near as much as you do. Oh, I'll admit the best thing she's got going for her is her look.
No, the best
she always looks fantastic. She looks like she could grab you by the throat and beat the snot out of you.
By the way, both the TNT and the TBS belts are just hideous. Both of them. They're just.
Yeah. They don't make sense. They have a belt named after a television station. AEW's got way too many titles. I can't even keep track of them all. They got so many titles.
Okay, let's go through it. Let's go through it. We got. By the way, we still somehow do not have women's tag titles in this company. I want to make that abundantly clear.
Right.
We have, for some reason, the AEW title.
Right.
The TNT title.
Right. TBS.
The men's tag titles. The men's trios titles. The All-Atlantic title. Which that belt has no purpose to exist at all.
Yeah, it's stupid. They call it All Atlantic, and obviously somebody doesn't know, has never looked at a globe. They don't know anything about geography.
We have the women's title, which, albeit, I like. It makes sense. That should exist. Very good, Tony. Then we have the TBS title, which is at this point the Jade Cargill title. That's all.
Right.
That's all it is. It's the Jade Cargill title. And then we have every single Ring of Honor championship, and Ring of Honor had a lot of titles. We got the Pure title. We got the ROH tag titles, the ROH trios titles. We got the ROH world title, the ROH television title.
Right. And I cannot get emotionally invested in that many different titles.
That is 11 ridiculous. Different championships that could be featured on a week-to-week basis.
Once again, they're just trying to do way too much. And hey, by the way, speaking of Ring of Honor, do you think that Tony Khan will ever get around to launching a Ring of Honor program as its own brand? I mean, he's had the company for well over a year now, and there doesn't seem to be any movement toward that at all.
I want to point out that if somehow this Honor Club thing, because they announced that Honor Club is back and that they're going to start doing TV on there, I want to know when they're going to tape that.
Right. Yeah.
Unless they're going to tape it in Orlando at Universal, which that would be fine. I don't think anybody would complain about that, but anyway. After this crappy Jade Cargill match, we get an update on Britt Baker.
Right. With a pointless thing with Ruby Soho, I don't know what they're doing there.
Well, I'm just glad Ruby's on television. This is an improvement over 3 months ago where you couldn't find Ruby Soho if you tried.
Yes.
Then we got a very good match between Darby Allin and Samoa Joe.
Yes. Yes, I enjoyed that. I'm a big fan of Samoa Joe. I like Darby Allin, but I'm a huge fan of Samoa Joe. I'm very happy that he re-won that belt.
I was surprised.
I expected Darby Allin to win, but I was pleasantly surprised. I thought that Darby Allin, in taking things to such an extreme, exposing the boards under the ring and everything, under the ring mat, it ended up backfiring on him. And I also, this is just my opinion, I thought that the thumbtack jacket was a stupid gimmick. Just like the one with the skateboard with the thumbtacks, I thought was stupid. And it ended up, it didn't work out so very well, you know. He couldn't quite get the thing on right.
And speaking of stupid, this post-match angle was not necessary.
With Wardlow.
Wardlow is back. I don't know why he was gone that long. I don't think he was hurt, was he?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So we get.
But it was a pretty good match, though. You know, just like I said, the afterbirth or the after the match was not that great. It wasn't necessary. They could have just ended it with Darby and Samoa Joe. But I guess apparently now we're going to get to see more of Wardlow versus Samoa Joe.
I'm fine with that. But, oh, good Lord. By the way, I do have an idea if they ever want to just get rid of some of these titles. If they're not going to do Ring of Honor traditionally on television, they could just unify all these AEW and these ROH titles.
Yes. That might not be a bad idea.
Now, regarding, I don't know what you do with the Pure title. Maybe you could unify that with the All Atlantic and just keep the Pure name and just go to AEW Pure.
All Atlantic just sounds stupid.
Yeah, I would keep the Pure title rules for that, but I don't know what you do with. I mean, you could unify the women's title and the ROH women's title. That wouldn't be that hard. You could I don't know what you do with the ROH tag titles anymore. I think those are done. I think they have to be.
Yeah, I don't even know. Well, the Briscoes were holding it, so what do they do now? With
they either have to somehow find Mark Briscoe a new tag partner, which I would venture to say is probably going to be Jay Lethal, or they got to kill the belts, but they got to do something, and they probably should have done it this past week, and they didn't. So,
well, overall, with FTR out of the picture right now, and who seem to be waiting out their That's my far and away. That's my favorite tag team in the world right now is FTR. I
I
think that I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to wait out their contract till spring and possibly head back to WWE.
I don't think it's that they're waiting out their contract. I think they're taking time off. But because I know they're both like pretty worn out because they've been working both New Japan and AEW and Ring of Honor.
Right.
It's a lot.
I know they seem to be implying that they might have one last run, and it wouldn't surprise me if they wanted to do that in WWE.
I think it depends on who's booking.
Yes, right, exactly. Triple H could do a good job with them.
He did do a good job with them. Think about in NXT; those guys were over as could be.
Well, they were great in NXT, and then when they were brought up to the main roster, it was just all bullshit.
But you can thank Vince for that.
Correct. But anyway, in contrast, in AE, like I said in Raw, we got a 3-hour show with 6 matches, whereas in AEW Dynamite, you get 6 matches in 2 hours. So it's paced better. It's not perfect by any means, but overall, it just a lot more in-ring action.
And I do want to point out that Dynamite was the best show of the week. I know we're going to talk about our favorite show and our least favorite show later. Dynamite was the best show of the week, and I don't think it was close because this SmackDown show was a dud.
Yeah, what could we say about it?
Well, we opened up with a video package recapping again the Royal Rumble and everything that happened there. We get a prelude of what's to come, which is Charlotte Flair versus Sonya Deville. I'm going to go on a full-fledged rant about that match.
One thing I would like to say is that one advantage that WWE, in my opinion, has over AEW in commentary is that they got a 2-man booth. They're back to a 2-man booth. And when you've got 3 or 4 people commenting, it ruins it to me. It gets too crowded. It's just like legitimate sports, You want somebody who's the technical person, the play-by-play, and then you want your color commentary. And I think the 2-man booth for announcing is always better.
Well, I don't know if you remember this, but when Rampage first started for AEW, and they had that Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega Impact title match, which I thought was a great match, and I talked about it on this show, on the previous iteration of this show. They had 5 people on commentary for that match, including Don Callis.
That is just unbelievable.
5 people. I don't have to tell you why that's a bad idea.
Right.
That's just a bad.
And Michael Cole and Wade Barrett are pretty good.
Wade Barrett has gotten so much better on commentary.
Yes.
He was really not great at NXT, but Michael Cole.
I agree. He's improved a lot.
But Michael Cole is so good, and we never knew how good Cole was because of the Vince being in his ear. But when you just let Cole go,
much better.
When you just have him let it rip, Michael Cole he's good at this.
Right.
It's not good, however. I thought the match was good, but
well, we're in Greenville, South Carolina. Live. I remember when SmackDown was always taped, but they're usually live now.
This crowd was hot to start the show. We got the SmackDown finals for the #1 contender tournament for the tag titles.
Right.
This match was good.
Ricochet and Braun Strowman versus Imperium.
This was a good match. It was probably the best match on this show, though that's not saying much. The wrong team won.
I agree. I wanted old Ludwig and Giovanni to be the winners. I love Imperium. They're one of the best tag teams in the company, I think.
I know that they're going to be pushing Gunther very strong, as they should.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, Cody Rhodes may have won the Royal Rumble, but Gunther was the MVP of the night. I think you could make a case that he basically stole the show in a lot of ways. The Royal Rumble, it was such an impressive performance from Gunther. And I
Even
hope
Cole said
that
on commentary, that was a career-defining, star-making performance for Gunther. And it was.
He was just unbelievable. Yeah. To me, that's the best, the lasting impression I came away from the Rumble more than anything else with Gunther's performance.
It also told you that they're going to be pushing him.
Yes.
When somebody goes 1-30 like that and almost wins in the way he almost won, right, Gunther is getting pushed. And
this wasn't like a horrible match, but I didn't like the finisher.
I thought the finish actually looked really good, but the wrong team won. Ricochet does a swanton off of Braun's shoulders. This looked really cool, but the wrong team won. And you know what? I'll try to justify it. And here's my justification for
it.
Maybe they don't want Imperium losing a title match. Maybe that's it. Maybe they just don't want the Usos beating Imperium right now. And Imperium will have the excuse, the heel excuse of Gunther got thrown out, and that distracted them.
Right.
So it wasn't a completely clean finish anyway. Imperium looked really good here. Imperium looked very strong, even in defeat. I would make the argument that probably part of the reason Hunter didn't want to put him through was because he just didn't want to beat him with the Usos, which is that's what he would have had to do anyway.
Right.
Because I don't think the Usos are losing those titles before WrestleMania.
I doubt it. I would be very shocked if they did.
But
don't know what's going to happen with them. We'll get to that.
But you can justify Strowman and Ricochet losing to the Usos in a 10-minute match. Definitely. This match was 16 minutes. It was very back and forth, and you almost feel like whoever won this tournament was going to have a pretty one-sided match with the Usos.
So next week we get the title match with the Usos,
which pretty much tells you the Usos are winning.
I think so. Yes.
Now, had they waited for the Elimination Chamber for that, I think Imperium probably would have won. Just kind of going based off what's been going on, I think Imperium probably wins this if it's for the pay-per-view. But because it was just for next week, I think they're probably saying, you know what, we don't want to do Imperium versus Usos on free TV. And that's probably a big part of it, is they just don't want to do Imperium and Usos on TV.
Right.
And I can understand that. I can understand them saying this is too big a match. We don't want to give it away on free television.
Yeah.
And it is a big match, so I understand that. But it is pushed on commentary, however, that this is an ideal time for a match with the Usos because of the uncertainty that we'll get to in a minute.
Correct.
We get a Kayla Braxton interview. By the way, Kayla Braxton is really good at her job.
Yes.
They had her interview.
Charlotte Flair interrupted by Sonya Deville.
This just sets up the match for later on in the night. And then we get the stupidest segment in SmackDown history. Maybe
I don't care nothing about NASCAR. I'm sure that there's some fan crossover between wrestling and NASCAR, but
it's because they're on Fox. That's the whole reason they're doing it, because they're on Fox, and Fox has NASCAR. Though Fox has had NASCAR at least as long as I've been alive. I don't know about you, but I don't remember Fox ever being on anything other than, or NASCAR being on anything other than Fox, ever.
Right.
Dominic and Ray had a race. I'm not sure if it was actually Dominic and Ray driving, but if it was, that is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Ray won. There was a pull apart. Dominic made the dumbest comment I've ever heard in my life. I would have won if Rhea was here.
Right. He wants his mommy.
I don't remember if he said mommy or Rhea, but either way, it doesn't matter. We got a fine match. I don't want to call it bad because I don't think it was that bad. We got
Title
a
match.
match between Charlotte Flair and Sonya Deville for the SmackDown Women's title. This match had no reason to exist, but it did, and it was fine. It was not bad, but it was slow, and they were not on the same page for most of it. It went 10 minutes, and Charlotte won with a figure eight. Big surprise.
Yes.
Not a surprise at all.
Correct.
My God. What the hell? Okay.
Yeah.
We go to commercial and we come back and we get a video package for the men's Royal Rumble. Cody wins, blah, blah, blah.
Correct. When we go to the Usos.
We get the bloodline in the locker room. Roman's sitting there and Roman looks angry as ever. Can we talk about how good Roman is, by the way? This guy is just... He's awesome. Roman Reigns kicks ass, and he was great here. Basically asks the Jimmy and Solo, have you heard from your brother? Alluding to Jay.
Right.
Then he brings up the fact that they have a title match next week, and Jimmy says he's certain that Jay will be there. I have a feeling Jey Uso's probably not showing up next week.
Yeah, that would shock me. I don't know how they're going to play this out. It'll be interesting.
Well, I can tell you how they're going to play it out, but it's going to take them a while. Then we get another match that was kind of just there.
The Brawling Brutes versus the Viking Raiders.
This match was good. It was short. 9 minutes.
Here's another one. Let me rant for a minute about stupid and unnecessary name changes,
Butch.
I mean, he's always going to be Pete Dunne to me. And the Viking Raiders, I still call them War Machine.
I will say Sarah Rowe, Valhalla, whatever you want to call her, has added something to them. She adds an extra.
Sarah Logan, right? Isn't that who that is?
Sarah Rowe, because she's married to.
Okay, Rowe. Yeah. I haven't seen her wrestle in ages.
Well, she did have a kid, so there's that. Maybe not wanting to risk the injury. Well, Viking Raiders won.
Right.
With the Ragnarok, which I think is an awesome finisher, by the way. That Ragnarok is great.
Yeah.
They hit it on Butch, clean and pin, middle of the ring. After the match, we get a brawl between the Viking Raiders, War Machine, whatever you want to call them. Just don't call them late for dinner.
Right.
Between them and Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. I thought those two broke up, but I guess they didn't. Well, then we get a video package recapping the worst match of 2023.
Oh, God. The Mountain Dew. I hope they got a lot of money from Mountain Dew for this match because that's the only thing they got out of it. And, I can't believe that in Bray Wyatt's first match in how long? His first match since he came back. And I feel like he's already been buried. They recapped the whole stupid thing with the Uncle Howdy or whatever the hell his name is.
Uncle Doodoo.
Yeah.
Who missed LA Knight by 10 feet.
Yeah. This was an abomination.
Then they show a video package that I swear was just meant to be a jump scare.
Yeah.
Bray Wyatt's sitting there in his rocking chair, and I thought, are we going to get a good Bray Wyatt promo? No. Uncle Howdy walks in, puts his hand on his shoulder, jumps in front of the camera. They cut to break.
Yeah, it seemed pointless.
I would have preferred a Bray Wyatt promo, but,
Actually, yeah. Anyway, I don't know what's going to come next, but these types of matches with the corporate sponsorship, there was something online which I hope is a phony story.
It's Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yes, you heard about that? Is that a real thing or is that a joke?
Yes, I am almost 100% sure that that is real.
So we're going to get a cinnamon toast crunch match
At WrestleMania.
Oh, you know, I mean, if they got to have sponsors, why don't they get some cool sponsors?
If it was Bud Light, I don't think I'd care that much.
Coors Banquet beer. Half Blue Ribbon,
Hell,
Wild Turkey 101.
hell, freaking get Pepsi to sponsor a match. Why not? Oh wait, they already did because they own Mountain Dew. Never mind. That doesn't
That's right. PepsiCo.
We got a blase four-way between Natalia, Shotzi,
Right.
Shayna, and Zelina. This was the typical WWE four-way. If you've ever seen a WWE four-way, you've seen this one.
I was surprised that Natalia won. I don't look for her to win
anything.
I don't look for her to win the Elimination Chamber.
Shayna would have been more believable.
Yeah, and Zelina. I used to love her long black hair. That's gone. She looks horrible now. That's just my opinion.
So Natalia is now in the Elimination Chamber along with Asuka and Liv and Raquel and one other person that I'm forgetting for some reason.
Nikki Cross.
Thank you.
And Piper.
Oh, and Piper. Yeah,
yes.
Piper Niven.
One more slot to fill, which will be decided by another four-way next Monday night on Raw.
Which I'm sure will be equally as blasé.
Well,
only because
when they're not given much time, and it's kind of hard to do much when you got four people in the ring.
It's going to be Candice LeRae, Piper Niven, Mia Yim, and Carmella in the four-way next week.
Right.
So Piper's not in the match yet.
No, I think she was already one of the ones that was.
No, she's not. She's in the qualifier for.
Okay, that's right. Thank you. Yes. See, there's so many names to keep track of. My old mind gets confused.
That's why we take notes, right?
Exactly.
Then we get another segment in the Bloodline locker room. This was the most babyface Roman Reigns has looked in 3 years. So he apologizes for the way he talked to them and then professes how much he needs them. And then we get a great follow-up to a great angle. Roman Reigns comes out to the ring with just him and Paul Heyman. This was great.
Yeah.
But basically,
it was pretty good.
Basically, Roman talks about how he doesn't want to talk about Sami Zayn. He wants to talk about Cody Rhodes, but the people are too greedy and want him to talk about Sami Zayn, and he has to.
Everybody's using me. Everybody's just take for me. And all he does is give. And the irony of Paul Heyman being so good with Roman Reigns, I think is kind of delicious because I remember, I don't know how many years ago it was, but I remember Paul Heyman looking across the ring and looking at Roman Reigns and commenting about his Samoan heritage. And he said, and I quote, "You're barely 2 generations removed from cannibalism." I'll never forget that line. That's a great Paul Heyman line. And here he is. I think he's doing an excellent job.
He's doing great. And this whole thing gets cut off by something even better. Sami Zayn jumps Roman Reigns, and this looks like a freaking bar fight.
Right. And the crowd just popped.
And it looked great. The brawl itself looked great. Roman and Sami kick the hell out of each other. Sami chases him off with a chair. Sami hit one of the best spears I've ever seen a smaller guy hit on a bigger guy.
Right. That spear looked fantastic.
And Roman sold it. He sold the crap out of it.
And then we got Jimmy and Solo.
Jimmy and Solo jumped in, and it looked like Solo was going to do that move with the jump into him with the chair around Sammy's neck.
Right.
Roman just puts his hand on him and says, And then we got one of those Roman things where he talks without a microphone in his hand, but you can hear what he's saying. And I swear Roman's the only one that does this, but I'm pretty sure Roman's the only one that can do this. He gives Sammy what he wants, and what Sammy wants is a match for the Universal title, and he's going to get it at the Elimination Chamber. I fully expect this match to be match of the year caliber. Great.
Yes. I'm looking forward to it.
This segment that ended the show carried the show, because before this show sucked.
It was definitely the best part of it. It was the best way to end the show.
Was this I think this was the best promo segment of the week across all three shows.
Yes, definitely.
But that does not surprise me, considering who's involved. I think Cody Rhodes made a good point in the press conference after the Royal Rumble on Saturday, when he said that Roman Reigns is the best wrestler in the world, and I think there might be some truth to that. I think Roman might actually be like one of the best in the world and is certainly one of the best storytellers in wrestling right now. So next week it gets announced that we are getting the Usos versus Braun Strowman and Ricochet. We're also getting a 4-way between Rey Mysterio, Karrion Kross, Madcap Moss, and Santos Escobar for the number one contender for the Intercontinental title.
Right. Who do you think would be the best matchup with Gunther?
Probably Santos Escobar. Or Karrion. I mean, I don't think Karrion's that great, but I think Gunther could.
You'd have a good match with him.
But we're only 2 weeks away from the Elimination Chambers. Crazy.
Right, 2 weeks from Saturday, yep. I believe.
2 weeks from yesterday as this show goes up.
Correct.
Overall, a very fun few shows this week, except for SmackDown. I thought SmackDown was the worst show of the week by far. What did you think?
AEW was the best.
What was your favorite show? Was it AEW this week?
Yeah, it would be Dynamite.
And then the least favorite show for me is, I agree, Dynamite was the best show. I think it was close between Dynamite and Raw because I thought Raw was better than usual. But
it was, but I still would pick that as my least favorite just because it's 3 hours.
Well, SmackDown's my least favorite because I thought SmackDown felt like it was 3 hours tonight.
Yeah, it was kind of a slog, wasn't it? But I'd say Dynamite, although not perfect, Moxley versus Page was good. Kesha versus
Page.
Right.
Here's my thing with all three shows this week, and more specifically Raw, because it's the one with the most of problem. Some of these promo segments on all three of these shows, all three shows had it, but just bad promo segments all across the board.
Yep.
The best promo of the week goes to Roman Reigns. And in my opinion, at least, the best match of the week was, it was a toss-up, but I gave it to Danielson and Thatcher.
Yes. I'm looking forward to seeing more Timothy Thatcher.
I don't think we are. I think this was a one-off, but I hope we do.
It's too bad that they've got so many stars that really, really good wrestlers that do these one-off matches in AEW. And they've got so many people under contract that I don't give a damn about.
Well, I would not object to Thatcher being full-time, but, they just signed Bandito, who is fantastic, and he did not come cheap.
Also, I read that, I forget what his name he's using now, but Fandango.
Johnny Curtis, whatever you want to call him.
Yes. I don't know what they're going to do with him.
Did they sign him?
I had read that they had signed him, yes.
Why?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Why?
I have no desire to see that.
Isn't it amazing how over he was at first, Fandango? Whoever would have thought?
His song was over. He was not over.
Well,
I
just
thought he
like
had a good match with Jericho at WrestleMania that 1 year, though.
That's right.
Remember he beat Chris Jericho at WrestleMania?
Yes, he did.
I'll never forget that. I thought that was weird.
Was very, very strange to me.
I don't get it with that, but Vince likes him.
Well, hey, I want to Lot 22.
Oh, the shirt's fading in the background there.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
Yeah, that's the same shirt I was wearing last week.
Yes, Lot 22 sellers. Go check it out on eBay. Lots of interesting stuff for sale. Not just t-shirts, but all sorts of interesting things.
And in a few months, I hope we will have Two Marks and a Spark merch. I hope.
Yes.
That's not going to be right away.
Also, where we get now, there's t-shirts available for Uncle Russ's Comic Shop. There will be some merch coming for this show also coming soon.
I hope so. That is the idea. I don't have an exact timeline on that because I don't actually know. I know it's coming. I just don't know when. And I know there's some people already asking about that. So that's going to pretty much do it for the show this week, folks.
Right. Give us some feedback.
Yes, please. Let us know in the comments.
Don't like.
Also, tell us what your favorite show of the week was and what your least favorite was, because I think we're going to get some opinions on that one. And I think I know what everybody's least favorite show is going to be. I think it's going to be SmackDown. But I mean, you can't even call SmackDown a bad show just because Roman just
killing it.
That is so good.
Yes.
That guy is just on another planet with his talent. But let's send these happy people home, Russ. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We will see you guys right back here next Sunday on Two Marks and a Spark. I'm going to be in a new studio next week. So you're not going to be able to see it. It's going to be the same new background. But I will be in a new location next week. So if you notice different lighting or different anything, I'm in a different spot. So, and I'll be in a different state. So that'll be fun.
Right.
I just hope the internet works properly down there because I'm gonna be
that's the main thing. That's the only thing I worry about, because the town where I live here, small town of Iowa, on the side of town I live on, sometimes the internet is hit and miss, and it is entirely possible at some time in the future I won't be able to do this simply because of that,
or we'll have to cut and paste or whatever.
That's right.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. My name is Ben. That's Uncle Russ.
It's been a
Everybody
pleasure.
Have a good week. Everybody enjoy your wrestling. Russ, thank you for joining me as always.
Thank you, Ben.
Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Everybody have a good week. We'll see you next time.